Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It is Friday, a frenzied Friday. It's March 27th, 2015. I'm Doug Hagmann in studio with my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher, and tomorrow, birthday boy. That's right, Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for your belief and trust in us. Thanks for deliberately tuning us in, listening to us. We've got so much news, information, and analysis of the news to cover. We're gonna attempt to sit down here at the old kitchen table, conference table, if you will, maybe, in a setting here, and discuss what's really going on. Not in a Fox News Sunday type of situation, but just us, and conversationally, and without pretense and without the flowery junk that is unnecessary, and these formulated sound bites and questions and softball stuff. We're going to get into it tonight. It's been a while since we really delved deep into certain subjects. We have guests on, of course, and they offer so much to what's going on. But I'm telling you right now, folks, we are in a world of frenzy. And I mean chaos, and orchestrated chaos. And you need to know exactly what's going on around you. But, folks, for the new listeners, thanks for checking in. You can check in with us anytime. Just go to hagmannandhagmann.com, click on the Contact Us page, and just say, hey, listening from wherever you might be. And as much or as little information as you wish. I want to say hello to Amos G. God bless you from Texas. God bless the state of Texas, right? Fantastic. But for new listeners, again, we broadcast live each and every weeknight. That's Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com, separate from our home base, HagmannandHagmann.com. Okay? Now, wow. First of all, I just want to say, our birthday boy. Tomorrow is going to be Joe's birthday, so just you can hold the cards and letters and stuff like that, right, Joe? Or
yeah.
But now he's going to be. I'm not going to tell you how. You know what? I'm not going to tell you how old he's going to be because I had him when I was 8. Okay, really.
32.
Yeah, 32.
32
can you believe that?
Years old.
Seriously, it amazes me to think, and I remember the day that he came into this world, and I remember his grandfather being so happy that he had a grandson, and it was just I remember that whole, these events in your life, you remember these things, don't you? But wow, and
yeah, I remember coming into this world.
Yeah, you do. The doctor slapped me when you were born. Okay. Anyway, I got to tell you, it wasn't all roses and puppies and rainbows those 32 years, but we got through them.
Not at all. Not even close.
No, but we got through them, and here we are. And if you, like I said, I've said this often. If you had told me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we'd be doing this. That was perhaps one of the furthest things from any. You just could not have dreamed this up. So we recognize this as being something from God. Now, that does not make us, and I'm not saying that for any other reason than saying, because sometimes you just have to submit, right? All the times. You just have to listen, submit, let go, let God, and listen. But it's been just a wonderful experience. And, it's, just happy birthday. So, there you go.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I look forward to having a nice, relaxing day tomorrow, and probably go out to dinner with my wife, and
there you go.
We'll have some fun.
Here you go. I'm not going to do anything for you. Right? No, you know what? We just you just better check with my wife at some point tomorrow morning. I don't know what she's cooking up something, I think. So anyway,
her and my wife were conversating via text back and forth, so I don't know.
Well, yeah. I want to remind folks, tonight's broadcast brought to you courtesy, portions of tonight's broadcast brought to you courtesy of Pro Flowers. Folks, here's the deal. You've got a number of things. Well, Easter coming up, and moms. I remember my mom when she was alive, and she used to tell me, "Don't put flowers on my grave. Give me flowers when I'm alive, or I'll grace me with flowers when I'm alive." And I never knew the importance of that until I lost her at a very young age and unexpectedly. And guys out there, wives, your moms, they might say, "Don't buy me flowers," but do. Trust me, do. So go to HagmannandHagmann.com, scroll all the way down, or just go to proflowers.com. Either way, if you go to HagmannandHagmann.com, you hit the link takes you right to ProFlowers, or just go to proflowers.com. But here's the important part: up in the right-hand corner, there's a blue microphone. You got to click in Hagmann, Hagmann, in the microphone. You can click on the microphone box and click on the word Hagmann, and that will bring up a page that says "Welcome Hagmann and Hagmann listeners." I got to tell you, they have special offers only for our listeners. So don't tell anyone else. But ProFlowers, what a great company, deliver great flowers. So I want to thank them for being helping us out, sponsoring our show. ProFlowers.com, what a great company. And I'm going to tell you something. When your wife or your mom gets that box at the door, that beautifully packaged box, my goodness, a tear will well up, and your pocketbook won't swell up, okay, or won't be affected. They've got some great specials. Great company. Anyway, a lot to get into tonight. I asked Joe before the broadcast. I said, "Do you mind if I just talk a little bit about what's coming?" Although the episode is titled "Mideast Unrest in the Middle East," which is really the keystone of our program. There's something that's bothering me, and I've seen it a lot today, or the last week. And I mentioned it yesterday when we were talking about when I was talking about the problems with the studio, the mortgage, getting a mortgage. And somebody sent me an email, and I don't have the email in front of me, but whoever it was, thank you so much. I know you're listening. To Rick Wiles from March 25th, folks. If you have a chance to listen to Simon Black, The Economist. If you have a chance, on March 25th, Rick Wiles' archive, the first half is Simon Black. And it's interesting because Rick Wiles had a similar situation. I think he was buying his house. I listened to it real quick, and anyway, it was about the use of cash. And the reason I brought the studio up, the purchase and mortgage, the whole thing, and I don't want people to misunderstand. The reason I brought this up is not to say poor me or this is a personal thing. No. This is something that I did some additional research on today, and I got to tell you, I do think that we're in some. Well, I know we're in serious trouble, but I think the timing when people talk about September-ish, perhaps a financial collapse, I'm not so sure they're all that wrong. I don't want a date set, but it's got to happen sometime. Simon Black wrote an article, More Capital Controls as France Declares War on Cash. Now, this is from the sovereignman.com website, his website. And it's age. It's a few days old. But one thing that I see taking place here in America is exactly what's taking place over in France. Now, let me just real quick here go into what Simon Black wrote. And about capital controls, the war on cash, and this is now talking about France, but I'm going to bring it home here to America and connect the dots. He starts out by writing that the French paper, the Le Parisien, well, they didn't mince words in the headline, and I'm not going to read the headline. Basically, hunting season on cash is launched under the auspices of fighting terrorism. That one phrase right there should send chills up everyone's spine now, today. France's Minister of Finance, they rolled out a series of 8 new restrictions aimed specifically at minimizing the use of cash. Now, if you're listening to us in France, you know what I'm talking about. And we have listeners in France. Constance, God bless you. Thank you so much for listening, and others. But folks, please think about this in terms of whatever westernized country in which you live today. I don't care if it's America or Canada or the UK. This is what we are going to be experiencing in the short term. And when I get finished, you'll see the relevance of my conversation yesterday, and you'll see the connection perhaps to September. Okay. Anyway, under the auspices of fighting terrorism, France's Minister of Finance rolled out 8 new restrictions aimed specifically at minimizing the use of cash. Among the new restrictions, well, one's a prohibition of making more than 1,000 euros in cash payments. Now, they previously had a 3,000 euro restriction before. Now, think about that. Let's take these one by one. 1,000 euros in cash payments. So, if you want to pay for, let's say, a used car, or it doesn't matter.
Car is a good example.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about a used car. And
you talked about this yesterday. Say, you're somebody who puts $10, $20 away in a coffee can,
right,
cash away over time, and you count up your cash at the end of 5 years or however long you saved it up for, and you have, we'll say, $10,000, a nice little amount to buy a car, a nice used car. Well, you go to the car dealership.
That's right.
You have you say, to the salesperson, you find the car that you like, and we'll say it's $3,000.
It's a Peugeot in France. Okay,
$3,000 car, we'll say, and it's on the cheaper end, and you're ready to complete the transaction. Well, I have the cash. What's going to happen?
What's going to happen? You can't use it. Well, now in France, you can't do that. You've got to use a check or some sort of electronic cash, digital cash in France right now. Anything over 1,000 euros.
So, what if I don't have a checking account? Or let's say here, you can go.
Well, then you're a terrorist.
That's what they're trying to say, yeah.
Well, see, everyone is going to be forced into this system where you will not be able to conduct any commerce with cash. And this is what's going on right now. Because it went from, first of all, it went from no prohibition to a 3,000 euro prohibition. Now it's 1,000 euros. And pretty soon you're not going to be able to make any kind of transaction in cash. That's where it's headed. But it gets even worse. So, I mean, the new car or the used car example is a key one, because they could say, well, you can't. We're not going to be able to register it, the car. We cannot transfer the title because we don't know where this cash came from.
What about like a car repair shop? So you get your car inspected, and you get new tires and alternators, some shocks, $1,200 in repairs. You can't pay cash.
Nope.
And so you're paying a fine to the court system there.
Well, no. Anything over, it doesn't matter what the transaction is. Anything over 1,000 euros in cash is prohibited. Now,
what if about a person-to-person deal? I know that if it's still prohibited, people could still.
But think about what that does, though. It has a chilling effect. And I'm getting to another issue that I can guarantee you, folks, you don't think it's happened to you, but if you're listening to this program, I can almost promise you it has. But anyway, this is casting a chill on the use of cash. And I did a lot of research, and I did a lot of interviews. In fact, I went to my bank for the first time. For the first time, I had no business to transact or anything, but I went to my bank today. My wife and I were doing some things this morning. I said, "Please, just take me by the bank." And she said, "What are you, holding out on me? What's going on?" And I said, "No, I just want to talk to the branch manager." And she rolled her eyes. She said, "Oh no, now what are you going to do?" I said, "Just keep the car running and wait outside, right?" I'm just kidding. And if you see me run, no. Anyway, and I talked to the branch manager, but more on that in a moment. So anyway, that's going on in France. Now, large cash withdrawals exceeding 10,000 euros per month will also now be monitored and reported to the French authorities. How's that sound? 10,000 euros per month. So here's the deal. People think, well, I can't take 10,000 euros out at one time. No. No, no, no. 10,000 euros per month in multiple transactions. I know what it says, but I also know the practicality of it, which I'm going to get to in a moment here in the U.S. Okay, now, or the reality of it, I should say, in the U.S. Now, foreign exchange offices are going to be required to obtain a copy of someone's identification to exchange more than 1,000 euros. Now, think about that. You're going to have to actually pony up, in France, your driver's license or something if you want to exchange more than 1,000 euros with another person or foreign exchange offices. Okay. There are several more issues beyond this. And just for good measure, they threw in a few controls that aren't even related to cash. But most importantly, think about this now. This is not necessarily, this is not related to cash, but it affects something even more important. Moving and transporting gold through France, even through a professional freight service, must now be declared and reported to French customs. So if, for example, you're using a courier service to go from to transport cash, and it's going from one country to another, and it's just going through France, you've got to report that shipment. You've got to register that shipment with France. Now, they're saying this. They're saying that they're doing this in order to combat terrorism, because obviously only terrorists, and let me throw in drug dealers, use cash anymore. A little bit about that. During our series of errands and things that we were doing today, I don't do this very often, but so I'm going to have a cup of Starbucks coffee. And was waiting in line in the drive-thru at Starbucks, and ahead of me were 4 cars. The very first car at the window, I didn't see what was going on, but the next 3 cars, I had a better view. And I'm not sure exactly what this was or what this is. Maybe maybe you folks know. But instead of I didn't see any cash exchange hands. I didn't see a debit card or an ATM card exchange hands. What I did see was the driver at the window holding up their phone. And the cashier person at the window, taking one of those scan things, the scanny things, whatever you do, scan guns, and scanning the phone. It was a phone, clearly it was a phone. And they got their coffee or whatever it was. 3 in a row. I suppose I could have asked at the window what it was, but I didn't. Actually, my wife was driving, and anyway. So, anyway. Again, only terrorists and drug dealers apparently use cash. That's the mindset that they want you to believe. This is the programming that we're into. Now, there's another reason for this. The restrictions in France, as Simon Black points out, the restrictions in France are capital controls, plain and simple. And they're designed for one purpose and one person only. That's to keep people's savings trapped within the banking system. Interest rates in most of Europe are negative. And you know what? Mario Draghi, the head of the European Central Bank, president of the European Central Bank, wants to push it even more negative. Most banks across Europe have already dropped their deposit rates into negative territory as well, meaning the customers, the customers must pay for the privilege of loaning your hard-earned money and savings to a poorly capitalized bank. So what they're doing is, remember the old days, folks, where if you had $500 in a savings account or a checking account, or $500 in a savings account, remember They used to pay you interest. Well, in Europe, no. They will deduct money from your account for the privilege of holding on to your money, or for the privilege of taking care of your money for you. That's what's happening right now in Europe. Negative. It's called negative interest rates. Okay.
And they went from in one country I saw they went from I think it was 0.15% or 0.15% to 0.25% negative rate. They actually decreased.
Yeah. Well, what's the point of paying a banker a negative 0.25% interest if you can simply withdraw all of your money in cash and hold it, we'll say, in a safety deposit box? If you think about a guy who's got like $10 million in 10 million euros, okay, in an account. Well, who in their right mind with 10 million euros is going to get clipped for 25,000 euros per year? Yeah. Are you serious?
You have better chances of in the stock market, in a mutual fund,
but see, now here's the insidious part, and this, the reason I'm mentioning this, folks, is prepare yourselves, each one of you at home, if you're listening to this at home, and we have a lot of police officers that listen to this show, and a lot of truck drivers. And the truckers especially, because you're long-haul drivers, you know what's going on. I mean, you go through so many states, and, man, I'm going to tell you something. You've got a really rough job, but a very rewarding one, and I have a lot of respect for long over-the-road truckers. But anyway, you can see across the country where we are starting to the use of cash is becoming less and less. We're being mentally programmed not to use cash, to use our debit cards or whatever those things are called, and use our iPhones, or just use digital cash is what I'm saying. But here's the insidious aspect of things in France, for example. Let's say that you got it good, okay? You've got it like €1 million in your account, but you're getting clipped every month for that 0.25%, right? And they want to raise that. So you don't want to buy gold, we'll say, for whatever reason. You don't want to buy precious metals. Maybe you have enough of that. Maybe you have enough food. So you're going to invest in property. How's that sound? That good, safe investment, right?
Sounds like it.
Well, guess what? And this is not,
property is depending on, if you do your research, we could be getting off into a whole other thing here, but there is property that is worth money, and then there's property that is going to be worth a lot more money in the future as people and companies and towns continue to develop.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point to keep. That's a good point to keep. But let's say you want to buy a farm, or a property with a house and a barn, and you want to become self-sufficient. If the government believes you are doing that in order to escape the negative interest clip, they will disallow you property. They could, I should say, disallow you to buy that property. Now think about that for a second. Really? They're going to say, we believe that you are doing this to avoid the negative interest rates, and we are going to disallow you, or we're going to negate the transaction. Okay. Now, if you don't believe me, you can research this yourself, and I would encourage that you do. See, the problem is this: even if a tiny fraction of bank customers try to withdraw all of their savings, for example, or what's in the bank, it would collapse the entire banking system. Banks don't have the money. They don't have our money. And if you're in France, they don't have your money. If you're in the U.S., they don't have our money. They don't have the money. Simon Black writes, the most basic principle of modern banking is for banks to take money from depositors and gamble away upwards of 97% of it. It's called rehypothecation, whether it's making risky loans based on the latest investment fad, or whatever it is, or buying the bonds of bankrupt governments. and they hold a very, very, very tiny portion of the savings in reserve. Everything else is gone. Remember when I had talked to the bank clerk this was during the summer, and she glibly said, "Oh, we don't have a lot of money here. It's in the community. It's working in the community." All right. Okay. So, I mean, if everyone tried to, liquidate their accounts, there would be, the banks would fail. Bottom
Bank
line,
run.
right? So, hence capital controls, and their aim in the EU and in particular France is to close every possible door to eliminate every alternative that people hold. That they have to hold savings outside of the banking system. So if you want to save your money in a bank at negative interest rates, no problem. If you want to buy stocks, bonds, again, this is where bankers and governments still profit, no problem. But if you want to hold cash, ironically, as Mr. Black does point out, that's called legal tender. They want to make it illegal. And if you want to own gold, they're imposing all sorts of reporting requirements. Now, these are not the policies of governments with strong financial positions and stable banks. Absolutely not. They're policies of a bankrupt government and illiquid banking systems. Now, it's happening, and as Western nations continue to go broke, it's going to keep happening, and controls are only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Folks, it is coming to America. It is coming to any westernized country, or any country with a central bank. And that's what, all of them, Joe? I mean, you're up on that, right? How many don't have central banks? 3?
Iraq, Cuba, North Korea. Unless Cuba has entered into some sort of agreement.
3 lovely countries to make your home.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any Cuban listeners or Iraqi listeners.
In Cuba, except for the government. But Iraq or Iran, no thank you. And North Korea, well, I don't like prison camps, so we'll stay away from there.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, exactly. But if you think it's not going to happen here, the United States, we are flat broke. You know this. If you don't believe me, just go to the General Accounting Office. Their financial statements there.
What does it say? Bankrupt?
Well, the total net equities, which is merely assets minus liabilities, is a negative $17 trillion. That's where you hear that $17 trillion in debt. Okay.
A couple hours of overtime.
Yeah.
We can pay that back, no problem.
Well, with unfunded liabilities, you're looking at $60 trillion in debt. This is never going to go away. It's never going to get repaid. Now, the issue, the thing I was talking about yesterday, and I want to drive home, and I had this is what made me stop at my bank today, because I was really curious about this. There is something called the Financial Crimes Enforcement Division, or FinCEN unit. They create SARS reports. Have you ever heard of SARS? I mean, obviously, SARS. You think of what? You think of
virus.
Virus, right? Well, and folks, you can go if you just type in a search engine, FinCEN, FINCEN, and then gov FinCEN, and then SARS, SARS. It'll take you. You'll eventually find the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and you'll find a PDF on FinCEN Suspicious Activity Report. And I had done this early today. Now, you'll find dated material, and you'll find a few some that go up to July of 2014. I'm not sure. I don't think I've found anything beyond that. But one of the things I did find was a map. And the SAR stats, or the SARS, is the suspicious Yeah, B, I can't talk here. The Suspicious Activity Report. That's what SAR stands for. So SARS is just the plural. SAR stats. And this is part of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I'm sorry, there's a SARS stats July 2014, as I mentioned, on the internet. Now, here's the deal, which has the stats. It involves banks primarily, but also insurance companies, casinos, and card clubs, and other types of financial institutions. Here's what's going on in this country today. And chances are, if you're listening to this program, you have been reported to the federal government by your financial institution. I don't have any proof of that, but I do believe that to be the case. I believe I have as well, because when I talked with a branch manager. I said, I was under the pretext of trying to take care of, making sure that progressing for our mortgage anyway. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you folks? Now I had already known the basic stats for our county with the suspicious activity reports. I said, do you guys have a lot of? Do you participate in the SARS program? And she looked at me. Oh yeah, absolutely, we do. And why? She asked. And I said, I'm just doing some research, and she knows what I do. And I said, I'm just curious. Do you guys report like a lot of is there a lot of suspicious activity to report? I'm trying to be real, innocuous here and kind of harmless. And well, sure we do. We do report. And I said, is there any quota that you have? Oh, no quotas. But and I won't go through the entire conversation. But here's the bottom line. The banks have a wide latitude, and it's not necessarily just high reporting requirements, or if you're taking out multiple or bunches of money or transactions over 10,000 or whatever. It's really more of a instinct or a suspicion. Let's say you walk into a bank on Monday, take out money. Tuesday, take out money. Wednesday, take out money. The bank may say, well, look, that's pretty suspicious if you're not, we'll say, running a cash, or a business where you need change or that kind of stuff. And they will, in fact, report you to one of a number of agencies. Now, that doesn't mean that anything is going to happen. That doesn't mean you're even going to know about it. Chances are you'll never know about it. You'll never know about it. That's under, like, for example, undefined activities. And anything the tellers or the managers or the people of the bank consider unusual is suspicious. It's a very broad, all-inclusive theme, whether it's structuring money laundering, whatever. Now, the reason I bring this up is this is one of the tools that will be used in the run-up toward this economic collapse that we are going to experience. I mean, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, I think we're into the nitty-gritty right now here. If a bank teller says, for example, if you're withdrawing, I don't know, let's say you're blessed and you've got $5,000 in your checking account, you're withdrawing $2,000 for something, I don't know, whatever you do, doesn't matter. The bank teller says, wow, what are you doing, going on a trip? If you say, hey, it's not your business, which is my first inclination, well, that could be and probably would be considered suspicious activity. And banks are encouraged to report you to the IRS or to, depending on what they suspect, to whatever federal government agency. Again, just because there's a report filed on you does not mean that you will know about it, nor does it mean any activity from that agency will be, there won't be anything done. I mean, it doesn't mean that there's going to be something done, but there's a file on you at whatever agency is, and there's a file kept at the bank. And I try to say, well, hey, did you ever report me? When we were talking about the suspicious activity, I kind of chuckled, and I just didn't get a warm feeling from that question. Now, if they can do something like that to really a nobody, and I mean that, like a nobody, financial nobody like me, like us, like all of us perhaps listening, what are they doing to people that have money and are wide awake? And they're creating lists, and I'm going to tell you right now, things are these capital controls are coming to America. The very same controls I talked about in France are coming to the United States, or coming to Canada. They're coming to other Western countries. I'm telling you right now, this is going to happen. And when you see this begin, and I believe it's going to begin very soon, based on my research, I do believe that we're going to see restrictions placed on how much you can take out of the bank and what you can do with the cash. We're going to see restrictions on using cash for financial transactions. I believe that there's going to be a short window where that's going to be in play, and that's going to lead up to the economic collapse. Now, can it happen before September? I don't know. It doesn't really matter when it happens, but I do believe it's going to happen, or maybe even concurrent with that.
I want to thank Larry in the chat, Infidel 007, for sending us this article from InfoWars. Feds urge bank to call cops on customers who withdraw $5,000 or more.
Yes, okay, I did see that. Larry, thank you very much. I did see that.
The Justice Department is ordering bank employees to consider calling cops on customers who withdraw $5,000 or more, a chilling example of how the war on cash is intensifying. Banks are already required to file suspicious activity reports, as you just mentioned, on their customers, with threats of fines and even jail time for directors if financial institutions don't meet quotas. But as investor and financial blogger Simon Black points out, last week a senior official from the Justice Department spoke to a group of bankers about the need for them to rat out their customers to the police. As Assistant Attorney General Leslie Caldwell gave a speech in which he urged banks to alert law enforcement authorities about the problem so that police can seize the funds or at least initiate the investigation.
Huh.
I mean,
well, there's an eye-opening. That's Simon Black. It really, Go ahead.
You have your money in the bank.
It's your money. Yeah, and don't forget about that.
Yeah, you go to take it out. Say you buying a car. You go to take out $5,000, and you're telling me that they're going to call the cops on you. The cops are going to come seize the money that you just took out of your bank account because they don't like it, or it's suspicious to them now.
But see, my question is why, and it all goes back to because the banks don't have the money. It's a form of capital control, and the war on drugs and the war on terror.
It's exactly it is. War on terror in the name of fighting terrorism.
And before under Nixon when he initiated the war on drugs. All right, this is they're using these two pretexts to confiscate your wealth, and here's why we all need to be upset. It's not just about us, ladies and gentlemen. It's just not about you and I. And I don't know if you're listening to this and you've got children, don't be please. The way I look at it is, my goodness, aren't you and I? Aren't we all listening to this? Working not just for us, but for our families. And Lord willing, aren't we attempting to leave not just a legacy, but to our children an inheritance?
Have you seen recently that the Democrats have been lobbying to take away the inheritance ability for parents to leave money to their children, saying that the government should take control of all?
Yes. Well,
I mean, just absolutely. I forget who what's Anthony Weiner, I think it was. Is he still a congressman?
Disgraced a former congressman.
Okay, yeah. Maybe it wasn't him. They were interviewing somebody on Fox News about a week ago. I saw this, and they were talking about this. It was some night I couldn't sleep. I was up. I turned the TV on. You know, they rerun the Bill O'Reilly and Greta Van Susteren. It was like 3, 4 in the morning, and they had a part on this where it talked and it showed clips from lawmakers saying that no, that is not the children's money to receive that the parents left of the estates. It's not their estates. It should be seized by the government.
You know what's sad?
Because they didn't earn it.
Well, and this is something that in Pennsylvania, where we broadcast from, my father passed away, or my mother passed away, obviously, when I was young, and then my dad passed away. My goodness, 20 years ago now. Hard to believe. And of course, I had a stepmother after my mom passed away. Years after my mom passed away, my dad got remarried. Anyway, my stepmother passed away a couple of years ago, and going through the estate process, and she had very little except a very small house that she had, and that was the extent of it. And by the time everything was said and done, the taxes, the estate, what the government had taken was just decimated. I mean, there's nothing left.
My grandmother rolled over in her grave if she'd have seen the end result of that. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember how long it was that we were going through the from when she passed. It was in her will that the house be put up on for sale, and the proceeds split three ways.
Yeah, among family members.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, it was a nice house in a nice area. If I even told you guys what the house was worth, then what the amount that was given split three ways. I mean, it'd be sad.
You could not. I'll tell you what. You couldn't even buy. And I'm not no hype behind this, but you could even buy a new car with what was left.
No, not at all. I mean, you're talking about from what the house was appraised at, or even for what the house was sold at. 1/3 of that was split three ways.
Yes, and everyone, and folks, let me tell you something too. The creditors come out of the woodwork. The nursing home. She was in a nursing home briefly, and or that wasn't a nursing home. It was a rehab facility.
It was a nursing home rehab facility that, and this was another part of this that she stayed at, and the insurance wouldn't cover it up to a certain point. So I remember I lived with her at the time, and she decided she wanted to be taken out of there before the insurance would stop covering it.
And I remember that as well.
Well, 4 months later, after she passes away, her zero balance there, all of a sudden they started sending bills for thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And guess what? We had to pay it.
Yeah, and there was no appeals process. And even when we pointed out the error, that the corporate people had the timestamps and said no. Even though she left at such and such a time, that's a different problem. But anyway, I was talking about inheritance, but the goals, starting with Adam Weishaupt, who was a professor of canon law at the Jesuit-operated University of Ingolstadt. Well, a side note here, there are many researchers who believe that Weishaupt was not the one who originated the idea of the Illuminati. Rather, he was hired by the House of Rothschild to unite various esoteric ideas into a perfected formula. Well, Weishaupt drew from the deep wells of occult societies the bloodlines and blended it with the precepts that were honed to perfection within the Jesuit order. He perfected the concept that became known as the Law of Fives. Now, I'm going to give you this. Again, this is a side note, but it's important because we talk about the Illuminati and we talk about their influence. Well, here's the 5 laws. Abolition of monarchies and all ordered governments. Okay, fine. But number 2, the abolition of private property and inheritances. We're seeing this happen incrementally today in America. And it's the inheritance, that's obviously abolition of private property. Well, how is that taking place? You're seeing more and more, and I referenced this yesterday, that's why I referenced this, because it's important to understand, yeah, there are mortgages out there, people are buying and selling houses. However, they're tightening up the restrictions well beyond anything that normal people can even, I mean, basically, you've got to, you know, they're thinning the herd. Okay, the abolition of patriotism and nationalism, the abolition of family life and the institution of marriage, and the establishment of communal education of children, and finally the abolition of religion. Those are the five laws. And I just wanted to reference that as a side note. But the bottom line here is, you know, everyone talks about the economic collapse that's forthcoming. We're seeing it taking place in France right now. We're seeing it here in real time in the United States incrementally. Folks, everyone listening to this, understand that pretty soon cash will become criminal. It'll be a crime to hold cash, to have it in your shoebox, under your mattress, in your in your backyard, and in a hole, or wherever you might put it, or even in a safety deposit box. Mark my words, it's coming, and they're going to limit cash transactions so they can. That's the intent, and they're doing it. This is the other thing too. Joe, you know about this, and we've talked about this, but this is so important. They're using social networking as a tool to mold the opinion of a condition the younger people to use the convenience of digital currency.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a tool. So every tool that's created for something good, like social networking, like the internet, how convenient is it to be able to e-file your taxes? I mean, that's convenient, right? Well, you shouldn't have to. That's a whole different subject. But anyway, or what about Amazon? Or you're through a click of a mouse, you can pay your electric bill. That's convenient, right? But the dark side of it is what we have to think about. It might be convenient to pay your electric bill with the click of a mouse, but what's it doing? It's conditioning you to accept the fact that you don't need cash. You put it all in the bank, and it's all in the bank, and it's out of circulation, and you see it's a great Ponzi scheme. But understanding the complexity of the Ponzi scheme is a little bit different than understanding that, or just acknowledging the fact that we're in one. So when we talk about the fact that perhaps we're going to see a bank collapse, the Shemitah year, the Jubilee year, in September, the blood moons, all of this, and we could see an economic collapse. I don't know when. I don't know the timing of it, but I will say this: there will come a point in this country where, through SARS, the FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Division, and through SARS, I mean, your banks are reporting on you. I can promise you that if you look at the numbers, it's interesting to see the numbers. And yes, as a side note as well, they're watching the numbers of reports. There's no quotas necessarily, but if your bank, for example, or your financial institution, if they're not filing SARS reports, you can bet that someone from the FinCEN unit is going to be in that bank wondering why.
Well, in the article here, they reference, and I closed it out, that there's quotas that need to be met for these.
Well, they don't use that word. I mean, maybe the article does, but the FinCEN unit does not use quotas, the word quotas. But they highly encourage dialogue between the institution and the federal government.
Okay.
So anyway, it's so important right now because everyone's got their eyes on the economy. I mean, obviously Middle Eastern stuff, but everyone's got their eyes on the economy. But really, are we really understanding the mechanics of how things are going to maybe start popping out of place? I'm telling you, This is a big part of it. And so realize that chances are you have been or will be at some point reported to the federal government, but just by suspicion of your financial institution. You might say, well, I don't have all that much money. There's no minimum amount, $500. I mean, there's no minimum. People say, well, anything over $5,000 is reported or $10,000 is reported. Well, that's true. But the majority of the reports, if you look at the SARS documentation and the stats, the majority of the reports don't deal with with that. It deals with the suspicious activity of lesser amounts and the aggregate over a period of time, as well as other suspicious activities, including fraud. I mean, the report's eye-opening. It really is. Some of the nature of the fraud, tax fraud, income discrepancy, fraud ring, identity fraud, check kiting, excessive cash payments, rapid utilization or movement of funds. Let me just look here.
All things that legitimate businesses and business people engage in for legitimate business purposes.
Check kiting. I mean, who hasn't? I shouldn't. I know.
Is that when you don't have the money in the bank and you write a check?
You play the float.
The day before you get paid, you
write a
check because you have no grocery. Yeah, we do that all the time.
You play the float a little bit. Well, they want to. I mean, hey, when they do it, it's okay, but when you do it, it's a crime.
Oh, well then. I guess we don't do that all the time.
And once more, if you really get into the SARS reporting, and I think what I'll do is I'll do an article on this, because I really think that this you really need to understand how important this is, and we better pay attention to this, because one of these days you're going to go pay for a car in cash, a used car, a clunker, and they might confiscate the vehicle or not allow the transaction to go through. So, and Rick Wiles in the March 25th episode did relay a personal experience he had trying to use cash to buy a foreclosed property on for his personal residence, and he couldn't use cash, or he couldn't. You listen to the March 25th episode, but I thought that was rather interesting. So anyway, but this is all being done because of the Ponzi scheme that we call the economy and the central banking system. And the ultimate goal here, and objective, is for you to have all of your money in the banking system. Everything's digitized, digital money, and this is the ushering in of this one world economic system that will usher in the political and religious systems and the mark of the beast and the Antichrist himself. And that's the larger picture. I hope that made sense to you. And I hope that was worth, please, this is not trivial. This is not trivial. This will affect every one of us and this is how we live our lives. So you think using your iPhone to buy a cup of Starbucks coffee is convenient? Understand what the other side of that is. And this is the greatest surveillance state that the surveillance has never been more extreme than right now. By the way, the issue that it's called Form 111. The FinCEN SAR is Form 111. Pretty interesting number, isn't it? Anyway, the reporting period of that I was looking at examined 1,369,529 unique forms that were filed between, in this case, March 1st, 2012 and December 31st, 2013 inclusive. So you're looking at, a year and a half, 1.4 million Form 111s were filed. Unique. Okay. Okay. So please be aware of what's going on and be aware of what the objectives are, and know that we are headed for certain disaster, economic disaster. And there's the kind of an insight into a little bit more, explaining a little bit more in the rush to digital currency, because you're not going to have any. And expect also for basically all transactions are anything inside within the banking system, whether you write a check, and this is the other thing I found out too. If you write a check for, let's say, a hard asset, a car again, a used car, that's I mean, the government, aside from the registration, which is obvious, the financial, and on the financial side, they know exactly, for example, what you purchased. So if you took $2,000 out of your account, even if you want to, let's say you think you're smart, you're going to take you're going to buy a used car, it's $2,500. You take the $2,500 out of your savings account in cash, and then buy the used car for $2,500. The bank will report that $2,500, and ultimately it will be matched up to the car purchase. So maybe I'm not really driving home the importance of that, but understand that banks and the federal government, including, all of the federal agencies, and including DHS, are looking at every transaction through the banking system. Not only the banks are only reporting some under suspicious activity, but DHS is nonetheless, and DHS nonetheless is looking at all of the transactions on everybody. You might say, well, how can that be? That takes too much manpower and too much. Not really. No, because the infrastructure is already there. It's been built over the last several decades, actually, since the 70s with the computers. And and if I may mention, it's interesting because the Promise software. Remember that, folks? Promise software, PROMIS, which was a case management system for the federal government. Well, this is all. It's the offshoot, is the cloning of that software is being used for this purpose as well. So that's important to know. I just want to. Hopefully, you find that of interest, because we need to know what's going on here and the ins and outs of this whole takeover. We've lost our privacy. Well, that's been gone, but we've lost our ability to remain outside. So even if you try to remain off-grid, you can see where we're at with that. Here we go. Thank you.
Approaching the top of the hour, but we do have a lot of news to get into on the other side, and we want to take your phone calls. Lindsey Graham this week goes on to say about Obama's nuclear Iranian deal that we're on the road to Armageddon. Interesting choice of words there from him. Also, in other news, we have the Obama administration has threatened U.S. allies for disagreeing with them on the Iranian nuke deals. Also, Saudi Arabia has launched airstrikes against Iran-backed Houthi militia in Yemen, as well as Egypt is launching warning shots. Also, head of House Benghazi probe says Hillary Clinton wiped out her email server, wiped it clean, her private server.
Well, how convenient is that? And should we expect anything less?
Oh no, she called up Lois Lerner, asked what's the
hey Lois,
manual, and
give me some pointers. Well, I find that very interesting because obviously, as Secretary of State, having a server. Now, see, this should be TV shows, movies, made for TV movies. What was that? Murder at 1600, for example, or years ago. I don't remember. There's a murder in the White House, and anyway, you see, this should be treated as a crime scene. For example, I believe that we should have the police or state police in the case, the New York State Police should have gone out and treated her Westchester County home where the server was located as a crime scene. I'm sure there'd be a turf war between the state police, will say, and the Secret Service, maybe even a shooting war. But the fact of the matter is, this is a crime. Destruction of evidence is a crime. In any venue, destruction of evidence is a crime, and this is exactly what she did.
It's obstruction of justice. It's destroying evidence. It's a number of crimes.
Well, the fact that she would wipe clean her server, innocent people, and look, we've been around 30 years. Innocent people don't do this.
Yeah, you can have all my email accounts and read through all those, anybody, if you want to.
Well, yeah, but see, look, but that's don't say, well, I've got nothing to hide, because we do have our Fourth and Fifth Amendments. However, in this case, where there's suspicion of criminal activity or suspicion of even seditious activity, for her to wipe the servers clean, to me, says this is absolutely beyond anything. She should be in jail, really, for that. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report of this, the 27th day of March.
Hour number 2 on this 27th of March, 2015. We're going to be taking your phone calls throughout this hour at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. Love to hear from first-time callers or new listeners. Want to give a quick update as to our schedule next week. We have a jam-packed week with guests, some new ones and some returning. Monday, we will be joined by Billy Crone. He is a gentleman we met in Orlando. He was the speaker at the Prophecy in the News Conference, and he has some fantastic issues to get into. Really excited about him coming on. Then Tuesday, as always, every Tuesday, we have Stan Dale, the real Indiana Jones. He'll join us for 1 hour from 9 to 10, and it's always a pleasure with so much going on in the world, changes, earth changes, and things that we see happening. He is the man to talk to. Wednesday, it's been a while since we've had this gentleman on, Mr. Doc Marquis, and I got to thank Doc publicly. Me and my father do. He wrote a fantastic article that is on News with Views right now. Or you can go to It's a God Things Production 777, which is his website, and he wrote a fantastic write-up about the conference, and wrote a bunch of nice compliments about us.
Very flattering article.
Yeah,
man. Thank you, Doc. God bless you, my friend.
But he's working on a book, not another DVD, a book, exposing the Illuminati, and that's not the title, but I'm not going to say the title.
Yeah.
But it sounds very interesting from our talk earlier. Then Thursday, Nathan Leal will be joining us.
Nathan, great.
He's got some new stuff.
Oh, man.
And you're not going to want to miss that show. And Friday right now is still open, but we have some calls out there, and we're waiting on some return calls.
Friday might be a very special guest. We just can't announce it.
Full week next week.
Yeah, and that's why and we're going to be doing news as well, interspersed with those guests. But I got to say that with folks, with all the seriousness, looking at the world situation, the chaos in the Middle East right now, and the chaos, you might think that it's the incompetence of Barack Hussein Obama. Barack Hussein Obama is not controlling things.
No.
Okay, it's the people that are above him. It's the people that are around him. And people might say, well, my goodness, this happened. Everything that's going on right now, it just kind of blew up all of a sudden. No, it didn't. If you look back in fact, I was listening to the program A View from Space this past weekend, and the topic of the program, or part of the program, was talking about Iran and their ambitions for nuclear ambitions, and how this all started. And if you go back in time, you can see where we've been we have been dealing with Iran in through backdoor deals, as well as Western nations, for a number of years under Obama, and it's that what with respect to the agreement, and I found this rather interesting. Let me grab my notepad here. Okay. The P5+1 group. I don't know how many people have ever heard of that, but it's an
economic.
It's 5 member nations. 5 permanent, right. It's a UK heading this up. U.S., Russia, China, and France. And the +1 is, of all places, Germany. Now, if you do the Illuminati numerology of P5+1, of this little coven, well, P is the 16th letter of the alphabet, 5, self-explanatory, 1, self-explanatory. You come up with 13, that perfect number. For those of you who believe in this, and you know, you don't have to believe it. They believe in it. But he mentioned one thing I never heard of, and I give him credit. I mean, this is not me. It's what I heard, and I did some research on this, and I thought, my goodness, it's very interesting. 2 things. Keep this name, ladies and gentlemen, in your. You can write this name down or keep this person in your sights. Catherine Ashton. Catherine Margaret Ashton. Well, she's the Baroness of Holland. She was born in 1956 in Lancashire. She's a British Labour politician. Now, she's got a designation of GCMG, which I don't even know what that means, except it's pretty high up there in terms of British royalty. She's the first vice president of the European Commission, and she was behind a lot of these deals, along with John Kerry of late with Iran. Now, that's number 1, and number 2. He also mentioned that John Kerry is one of the wise men, one of the 6 wise men. And I'm not going to get too far into this because this would go off on a pretty deep tangent. But there's a book out there, a book written by a guy by the name of Walter Isaacson and Evan Thomas. Well, Walter Isaacson, we used to run CNN, and Evan Thomas is a professor, I believe, at one of the Ivy League, I think maybe Princeton. Anyway, they wrote a book. I think it came out in 1987. It was published. In fact, I ordered it, called The Wise Men. It's a mere 873 pages. But what this book is about, and I'm going to turn it back over, and we're going to hit some news. But here, what this book is about is the lives of 6 policymakers: Dean Acheson, Everett Harriman, George Kennan, John McCloy, Charles Boland, Robert Levin. That's 6. Their role in the creation of the world, forming the world in a post-World War II setting. Now, I'll report on this after I have time to study this and research this book. But apparently, there is a club known as the Wise Men, of which John Kerry is part, and it's a super secret club, if you will. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the intricacies of it, but also just note the existence of a secret group of this group called the Wise Men, and it began, of course, in a post-World War II setting. But John Kerry is now, one of within that club, and I mentioned that in the context of the Iranian deals that are taking place.
Wise Men. I saw the You sent the Amazon link.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I ordered it.
Fitting name, I guess. Huh?
But it's interesting some of the reviews. I mean, the reason I wanted to take a look at this is because there's information in there, obviously, that would provide the background for what's going on today. The authors chronicle the activities of these people. They talk, of course, they talk about them in glowing terms. Ervil Harriman, okay, in glowing terms now. But it obviously gets back into the Woodrow Wilson administration, their Ivy League educations and such. So there's a lot of hidden golden nuggets here about these hidden architects of the world, these hidden architects behind the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, the Cold War. And I believe that's important background to find these hidden nuggets and stuff to make sense of what it is today. But the purpose of that, I said, is the purpose of that for me to mention this is because Kerry being part of this and Iran making deals with Iran, well, it has relevance to today. And now, okay, you know, but this controlled chaos that we're seeing in the Middle East is not in no way, shape, or form is because Obama just is a goof. No, this is planned and organized, and it's taking us to the brink of a shooting war, a hot war, and we are going to be pitted against Russia. And remember the articles, Joe, that I had written about Syria and about provoking Russia, the death race to Damascus, the road to World War III, the path to World War III, where the United States will be against Russia, and it's coming true. I mean, it was. I believe that there's a lot in there. When we were going after Syria, we still are via ISIS. And isn't it interesting that we are now, today, fighting alongside the Iranians against ISIS, while we're fighting alongside the other. We're fighting on both sides of this. And it's very difficult for people to understand. It's very difficult for me to understand how we can actually fight on both sides. We can fight with a Shiite regime and fight with a Sunni regime and be on both sides of the conflict. But that's typical Hegelian dialectic. It's typical Illuminati.
Be on both sides of the conflict and be the saviors or the solution bearers at the end of the conflict.
Right.
Also, the financial, they are the financial benefactors of funding both sides.
Well, watch this weekend, and if this is significant enough, if what I think is going to happen, we might have a show on Sunday, or at least, because we need to be talking about this, and I think Billy Cronin is going to be on Monday is going to be talking about the current events as well. But it's possible that by Sunday there will be a deal with Iran and the United States and Western powers have essentially acquiesced to Iranian demands. We've caved to Iranian demands. Now Saudi Arabia wants nukes. The damage done by the release of that 1987 document earlier in February, it was more than the content of this 386-page document that was released. More than that, it was the fact that we did it. Okay, it's like going into your neighbor's house and stealing a $2 kitchen or a $1.99 magnet off their refrigerator. It's not the value of the magnet. It's the fact that you actually stole from your neighbor or did this to a good friend.
I mean, yeah, these are state secrets that are kept between allies in order to, have an idea of each other's arsenals, their plans, to know, as an ally of Israel, say they were to be attacked, we would know where all their strategic locations are, where their nuclear payloads are, where they would be launching from, where they would be storing them. Now all this information is being released, so everybody knows.
Right.
which is dangerous, very dangerous.
Well, yeah, exactly. And
unless there was a separate reason for this release, and this was more of a political maneuver than a slide against Israel or backstabbing against Israel.
Well, there's much more than
remains
that.
to be seen.
You see, all of this is setting up for this, and we talk about this with others, with guests and such, and Bill Salas will be on next month. But we talk about the Confederacy that will go against Israel, and ultimately Russia, the power from the north against Israel. Well, this is what we're seeing here is the chess pieces being moved for this greater conflict. Folks, if you do nothing else, and if only a few people, really, a few outside of the alternative media, a few in the mainstream media are even mentioning the biblical prophetic aspects of what's taking place. Rush Limbaugh the other day had mentioned about the Imam Mahdi, and finally, and about how Iran is preparing for that. I don't know how many people caught that, but he finally mentioned that. Didn't go into great detail, of course, but nonetheless mentioned it. This is not good. Anyway, let's see here. Okay, sorry, I was distracted by something that just came in. No, okay, thank you very much. All right. The Islamic Republic of Iran, state sponsor of terrorism. Let me tell you something. They're being built up to. We're building the enemies. We're building the enemies. We're building the good guys, and we're also building the stadium in which the final battle or the final series of battles will be fought. So. Please understand that. And the Iranian deal, this is the first Iranian deal in, 37 years? 38 years? Or first deal with Iran? Oh, man.
All this, happening while there's a headline on Drudge here, Obama's Mideast free fall, mounting chaos in region puts administration on defensive. Barack Obama faces a slew of Middle East crises that some call the worst in a generation, as new chaos from Yemen to Iraq, along with deteriorating U.S.-Israeli relations, is confounding the president's efforts to stabilize the region and strike a nuclear deal with Iran. The meltdown has Obama officials defending their management of a region that some call as impossible to control, even as critics say U.S. policies there are partly to blame for spreading anarchy. If there's one lesson this administration has learned from President Obama's 2009 Cairo speech through the Arab Spring, it's that when it comes to this region, nothing happens in a linear way, and precious little actually about us, which is a hard reality to accept. A senior State Department official said, "Not everyone is forgiving. We are in a free fall here." I left out the expletive. Who served as Obama's ambassador to Iraq, was a top national security aide in the George Bush White House. For years, members of the Obama team have grappled with the chaotic aftermath of the Arab Spring, but of late they have been repeatedly caught off guard, raising new questions about the Americans' ability to manage the deteriorating and dangerous region.
Well, you've got multiple conflicts. There are multiple proxy wars.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia launched airstrikes against Yemen today. You have Egypt getting in there. Egyptian naval vessels are
even.
Yeah,
they're supporting the Saudi-led military operations in Yemen. Look, you're taking Egypt's Air Force and Navy. They're participating in the campaign in Yemen, and the country could send ground forces. That, according to the Foreign Ministry. Please understand that this is igniting the entire Middle East, and the entire Middle East is going to be at war. And the superpowers, Russia and the United States, and even to a lesser extent China at this point, but at least Russia and the United States is going to end up pitting Russia and the U.S. against one another in a contrived fashion. That's what the bigger picture is here, and it's what it's always been, but it's going to be a war of ideology. The minor aspect of this, and the political pundits are focusing on the Sunni versus Shia aspects. Please don't limit yourselves to thinking that, although that's what the mainstream Illuminati-controlled media wants you to think.
This article says the proxy war between Sunnis and Shiites, which has kept the Mideast in seething in recent years, took a sharp turn yesterday when Sunni states led by Saudi Arabia entered for the first time into direct military confrontation with the Iranian satellite, the Houthi militia in Yemen.
Yeah, you can't. But see, you cannot limit this to a Sunni Shia. Even at that level, you've got that conflict, that war, that ideological battle going on. Fine. But you've got the larger ideological battle, which is what? It is Islam versus the Christians, Islam versus everyone else. That's the ideological battle. And that's the very battle spoken about by Pike Mazzini, the letter back in 1871. And even if you don't believe that's authentic, at least it was authenticated back in the early part of the 20th century, even before all of this happened. So we know that this is being done by design. And we know who's behind it. And who's behind it are the global superpowers, the global elite. And what are they trying to accomplish? They're trying to accomplish a number of things, but they're changing. It's about the future, and it's about the control of energy, and it's about depopulation, and it's about taking America. And this does have an effect. You've got to think bigger, because this is an assault on the, believe it or not, this is an assault on the middle class of America. You might say, well, huh? What do you mean? Well, here's what this is doing. This is taking military assets, or will take military assets, into the continent of Africa, whether it be North Africa or Central Africa or even South Africa. And watch Central and South Africa. Watch them very close, because you're going to see in the very near term a lot of assets being moved into Central and South Africa. It's a battle for the future. It's a battle for the energy. But here's the key here. We are, when I say it's an assault on the middle class, when you move military assets for the free flow, to protect the free flow of energy, you have a war that's being waged against that. And once that happens, once we lose that ability to guarantee the free flow of energy, we will lose our current reserve status. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. And who? Well, when that happens, who suffers? What will the loss of currency or reserve status mean? What will it look like?
Well, the reserve status would be delegated to another currency.
Yeah, I mean, what would that look like?
It would look like we would, in Canada, for instance, they pay about double for gas what we pay, along with the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's
from what I understand, if the dollar was taken off as the world reserve currency, the prices of everything would basically double overnight. That's
you're talking and it's going to affect the poor and the middle class the most, and ultimately we are going to, and this is going to take place right, as I said earlier, right at the same time the capital controls of the are going to be placed within the United States. So this is a perfect storm that is being guided by the superpowers, by the power brokers, the Illuminati. Now, have you heard about Operation Decisive Storm? Well, I'm sure you have, but you just maybe it hasn't. You haven't heard it under that name. Last week, allies with their fighter jets joined. Well, I think it was yesterday, actually, or Wednesday. Saudi Arabia launched Decisive Storm. It's a military operation targeting the Houthi rebels who had vowed to dislodge Hadi in well, anyway, the Al Arabia news channel reported that Saudi Arabia deployed 150,000 soldiers, 100 fighter jets, and Navy units in Yemen after Hadi pleaded with his Gulf ally for help against the Houthi rebels who were advancing toward the southern city of Aden, where Hadi is based, to remove him from power in an attempted coup. So you've got Saudis now deploying troops. You've got, and I had mentioned Egypt, and you've
Egypt,
got non-Gulf states too.
Jordan is wanting to get into the mix here.
Morocco.
I mean, the whole Middle East is in turmoil, and it is not being rectified. The solutions are not forthcoming here. We are seeing a deeper plunge into chaos, more deaths, more displacements, more people, innocent civilians of these countries being affected by whatever you want to call this alliance against ISIS, or the Islamic alliance against the Islamic State. I don't know. But to me, it seems like the countries that we're seeing now are the major producers of oil, Saudi Arabia being one, and major allies of the U.S. Yemen was hailed as one of the bright spots of the Arab Spring, coming out of the Arab Spring really unscathed with minimal problems, has plunged into the turmoil that we are reading about in the news today. And where will this take us? I mean, you always said that World War III will start in Syria.
And that's exactly, it's still, I still believe that.
We saw Egypt and their leadership fall. We saw Libya and their leadership fall. We saw Syria and their leadership stay, but the fall of the country and the citizens of the country, that turned into a civil war zone. And since then, it's spiraled out of control into all these other countries where we saw minimal growth and steps toward some semblance of democracy and normalcy, if you will. But now it is almost seemingly unmanageable.
Well, this is planned this way, and I do believe there's a date certain for this new caliphate to be, this new Islamic caliphate to take over. I do believe that's, you need, enemies can be enemies in reality, and they are. For example, communism is an enemy against freedom, okay? So you fight communism. But they can also be created or facilitated and boosted. This is where we are funding both sides of the conflict. We saw this during the Cold War. Okay, well, a better example would be the Nazis, and how a lot of American or Western, I shouldn't say American, just American, but Western money went into to create and facilitate the National Socialist Party and the Nazis, and yet we were fighting them as well. This is, now you saw it with the Cold War as well, where the communist Russia, the Soviet Union, was created or was coalesced after the, learn your history and how we fought communism with the Cold War. Now this Cold War, once the fall of the Soviet Union happened, we needed a new, obviously you hear this all the time, we needed a new boogeyman enemy. Did we hear anything before the fall of the Soviet Union about the Muslim terrorist threat? No. What happened? Did they just appear? No. They were created by Western intelligence, and you could even go back to the creation of Saudi Arabia early in the 20th century, and it was created over oil deals. And it's all about energy. It's all about oil, even today. When I say oil, I'm talking natural gas as well. But this is what this is all about. It's a war for the future that involves energy, oil, as well as central banks, and the money, and the lack thereof. The countries that don't, the lack of money. This is a banker's war that's forming up with an ideological component, and that's what it's.
It also has to do with keeping their house of cards held up, their fiat currencies and banking systems put together, as we have, $18 trillion in debt, and if you add the derivative debt, what is it, a quadrillion dollars in debt with derivatives added in there, just a black deep hole that is never ending of debt, where there's no way to get out of it except for
war,
a war, financial collapse, and a reset into a new type of monetary system.
Right. Yep.
And us everyday laymen, we're not the cause of this debt, but you can sure bet that we'll be the ones paying for it with our blood, with our labor, and with our assets. I mean,
well, what little we have, right? So all of this is just huge. That's why too. If you look at things a little bit differently, and you might think, well, some of the stuff that we talk about, maybe a little bit too difficult to really consume and consider. Okay, I find it very interesting, and I spoke of this before, and I think it's important to. I really think it's important to mention. Playing out before us, one of the most important countries in Europe with respect to the European Union is Germany, economically speaking. Mm-hmm. And I just want to reference this very quickly here. And at first I thought this was kind of a way out there story, but now I'm seeing where a little bit of planning and forethought could very well extend into what we're seeing today. Now, Merkel's going to be playing an important part economically in the economic aspect of the European Union. Well, Angela Merkel, if you look at her resume, she's kind of like Obama. She's got she was nothing before she became Chancellor of Germany. She was born in the communist portion of Germany back in 1954. Her biography says that she was born on July 17th, 1954, 7/17. An important day, the 17th, seventh month, the 17th day. An important day, TWA 800 went down. You had MH17 going down on 7/17. Anyway, she was. The bottom line is this, without getting into her whole bio. If you look at what was going on in Germany during World War II and Hitler, you find that there's this interesting guy by the name of Dr. Klauberg, Klauberg. Okay, Klauberg was just a pretty despicable guy. He was a German physician, Dr. Karl Klauberg. He was one of the Nazi death doctors. He was convicted by the Soviet courts and imprisoned. When he was later recognized as this brilliant scientific mind, he was released after 7 years. He was recognized as a father of artificial insemination. Well, how does this apply to Angela Merkel? Well, again, I mentioned this before. The essence of Hitler was extracted or saved by this Klauberg guy. The forces of darkness in high places, well, they tried to produce a child from Hitler's essence, if you will, for occult and Illuminati purposes. Well, Klauberg, and there are documents to show this, that Klauberg brought the youngest sister of Eva Braun, Hitler's wife, whose name was Gretel, to East Germany. And the result of the experiment produced not a biological son of Hitler, but a daughter. Now, Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889. Merkel, in reality, was born, now this is against what her biography says, on April 20th, 1954, not July 17th, 1954. Now, April 20th is 11 days before the high Sabbat of Beltane, but I can see why both numbers are important, or both dates are important. One's Hitler's birthday, the other, of course, is the Illuminati 7 number. Anyway, so Angela became a custodian of the Catholic Church through its connections with East German Lutheran Church, and on and on and on and on and on. But what I find interesting is Merkel was elected Chancellor of Germany, and if you get drilled down into some more stuff, you'll find that the day of the election, November 22nd, that was the anniversary of Darwin's Origin of the Species, which really is a publication denying that God exists. Okay, so, of course, November 22nd, 1963, there are a lot of connections, and some maybe admittedly perhaps coincidental, others, well, it seems like there's some architecture here with this. But she's the head of the powerful G8 economic cartel, or was involved in that. And the biggest thing, and the last thing I'm going to point out, is Merkel has this extreme obsession with the works of a guy by the name of Richard Wagner, a Satanist, an occult composer. She admitted that in July of 2005. Now, Wagner wrote the infamous composition Parsifal, which is just an occult and demonic, is a favorite of Hitler. And Hitler stated that the music of Wagner occupied his mind and was always present in his mind. Merkel, much like Hitler, is deeply fascinated with Wagner's role of the Valkyries. The Valkyries were the minor female deities that would ride through every battle and gather the most valiant of the slain and carry them off to a place called Valhalla, where they would wait to join the army of Odin in the last battle at the end of the world. If you don't think that the Illuminati and the occult people are involved in what's going on right now, man, oh man, this is the economic part of it. This is the marshalling of the European Union that is going to rise up and be part of the architecture of the end of days.
And we were told by Washington Examiner's author, who's been a guest on our show. Oh gosh, his name escapes me. I'm embarrassed.
What are you talking about?
The Washington Examiner, our author. He's been a guest on our show. He writes articles for the on the economy for the.
You know what? I think you caused me to have a mind blank, but Ken Shortgen.
Ken Shortgen, yeah.
Right.
He explained how Germany was if they were to pull away from the dollar as a world reserve currency, that would be the domino that is needed to fall in order to bring that to fruition.
Yep.
So, we have to watch them to keep their eye on.
But here's the thing, and this is what I had written as well in the article that was published at Canada Free Press, as well as published on my website, HagmannHagmann.com. We're just going to kill the dollar. You see, this is by design. The dollar needs to be killed off. This is not. Some people look at this, and I know this is difficult for me to understand. But some people look at the assault on the dollar, or look at us, and people are saying, well, we're trying to keep the dollar up. We're trying to prop up the dollar. That's true, but that's short-sighted. Why are we trying to do that? Because in a Ponzi game, in a Ponzi scheme that's going on with the dollar, what you try to do is you build confidence. It's a confidence game, isn't it? That's what the Federal Reserve is. That's what central banking is. That's what all of this is a confidence game. The first part of that word is
projection
con.
of power.
Right.
It's not having the power, it's the ability to project the fact that you have power or
correct. Yeah. Yes.
And it's just like the dollar. They're projecting value by artificially manipulating different sectors of our economy, such as the job sector, the job growth. They say, jobs are easier to find, more people are hiring. We've come out of this worst recession since the Great Depression, and the job growth and the forecast for job growth looks good, so we're going to raise interest rates. excuse me, this is what the Federal Reserve is now saying. The projection of power along the lines of the military, having bases stationed all around the world, being able to, and that power has actually been slipping away from the United States. The ability to project power militarily, or at least through the president's policies and the administration's policies, they have reduced the projection of power to make the U.S. look more, make them look weak.
Well, and there's different sides playing off against the other, but really what we're trying to do, when you see the dollar being boosted up, the confidence of the dollar, and this is part of that confidence game. You want to bring, it's kind of like the story of the Titanic. You make it really nice and luxury. It's a privilege to be on the Titanic. But the intent, and you may not believe this, and that's fine. You can research it. There's theories on this. But let's put everyone that's, for example, against the Federal Reserve on the Titanic, lure them with trinkets and opulence, and then send it out full speed into an iceberg, and bam, there you go. You just got rid of your enemies. But see, you bring everyone into the dollar first. The more people into the boat of the dollar, the more people get hurt, like a Ponzi scheme. The bigger the pyramid scheme, the bigger the Ponzi scheme, the bigger the confidence game, the more money the guys at the top make, and the more people you get hurt.
And the less likely it is, the more countries that are invested in the dollar, and wanting its necessity to stay a world reserve currency, the more countries, the more corporations, NGOs that basically would be wiped out, belly up, bankrupt.
And can you imagine, segueing from that statement, can you imagine, and this to me has been the goal all along, is to make the United States of America appear to be a pariah. Everyone in the world, all the countries in the world will say, America, it's your fault. It is your fault this destitute the economy of all nations, the economies of all nations going bankrupt. It's your fault.
We're all insolvent, and it's due to your dollar.
That's right.
And the policies that you allowed. Actually, if the global citizens were smart, and awake, as some of us are, they would see the monster for who it truly is, which is the Federal Reserve Bank, which is the central banking systems, not just the Federal Reserve, but now you get into the IMF, the World Bank, and the controllers of those organizations. They are the reason. We did not have any great depressions or economic calamities until the Federal Reserve was implemented in 1913.
That's right.
Then things started to happen.
Well,
the depression
you shouldn't say that, because there was a panic before that in 1907 and 1893, roughly. There were financial panics that led to this conditioning to accept the federal central banking system.
Okay,
don't forget about
can
those.
We say that those were could have been manipulated by private?
Oh, they certainly were.
Mega money men.
Yes.
Who did this for the problem reaction solution?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it was. So don't forget about what led to the creation of the Federal Reserve. You can talk about the Federal Reserve, but you had that conditioning process to accept the Federal Reserve in the middle of the night on a Christmas holiday in 1913. So, we have to understand all of history to understand what's taking place today. And what we're seeing taking place today is that final economic nail. Now, when I said about making the United States a pariah, let me tell you something else. And folks, I don't know if you understand this or if you fully understand I shouldn't say understand this, but if you fully understand the importance of this. Right now, because of what we've done in Syria, what we've done in the other Middle Eastern countries, we have created a surge, an incredible, unprecedented surge of unscreened Muslims coming into the United States. Right now, as of right now, Obama, the renegade in chief, has averaged 100,000 new immigrants from Muslim nations every year. Now think about this: 100,000 unscreened Muslim immigrants a year. Now, if you're not alarmed by that, that's more than we're importing from Central America and Mexico combined.
Yeah.
And so, when people think about immigrants getting jobs and health insurance and Social Security and being fast-tracked to citizenship, what do you automatically think of? You automatically think of the Mexicans or the Hispanics.
People who come from the southern border, correct.
Right. Well,
some Canadians.
Yeah. How many Canadians? Eh? I'm gonna get my citizenship for America. Eh? Yeah. No. I love Canadians. We're obviously right for Canada Free Press. I mean, the Canadians are great people. I mean, fantastic, great neighbors, and they in fact, I think some Canadians are more American than Americans. Anyway, they know more. I talked to Judy McLeod, and she can rattle off our history better than anyone I know. I mean, better than any American I know. And it's just fantastic. But under Obama, the last 3 years, he's averaged 100,000 new immigrants from Islamic nations. And it's more than any Central and Mexican immigration. It's a big shift in immigration. Paul Sperry's written about this. In fact, I think WorldNet Daily had an article by Paul Sperry. And he's the author of Infiltration, How Muslim Spies and Subversive have Penetrated Washington. He's the co-author of Muslim Mafia Inside the Secret Underworld That's Conspiring to Islamicize America. You see, people look at, one more time, people look at the websites, and I'm not going to say anything bad about any alternative website that calls out the attempt to Islamicize America. Not at all. What I'm referring to here is don't stop there. Don't stop there, because it is not just an Islamic, it's just not. Don't think that they're not being used as a tool, the Muslims, because they are. The surge is being used to rend the fabric of our moral, of our culture, of our language, of our way of life, of our laws. And you know what else? It is to take over from within.
What do you mean? It's not like they're saying the Pledge of Allegiance in schools in Arabic, or saying, God bless the law, or however that goes.
Really? They're not, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, did you guys see that story recently?
Well, just let me finish. Just say this. Syria, they've always been on our terror list, but okay. And whether that's true, I mean, whether that should be or not, remains to be seen. But we've had so many restrictions, very strict restrictions on Syrian immigration. But ever since the Western intelligence, went into Syria and backed the anti-Assad rebels or terrorists via the Libyan debacle, via Hillary Clinton and Obama and others within that circle, including some very high-ranking conservatives, and egged on by some pretty conservative talk show hosts. You see 10,000 Syrians in the United States, refugees, because of those actions, per year. And the FBI has testified, and Paul Sperry has written, that they admit under oath, hey, we don't know who these people are. We can't find out what type of backgrounds they have, or criminal, terrorism, or otherwise, because we're not being provided with any opportunities to vet them. You can't vet somebody if you don't have documentation, police records, and such. And you can't get them from failed states. You're not going to get them from Iraq or Syria. So there you have it. And this is all part and parcel to the takedown of the middle class, or the takedown of us as a nation, of our national identity, of our national sovereignty, and then add into that, of course, the North American Union, which you think, oh yeah, that's long gone, right? I haven't heard about that. No, this is a big part of it because you see, it's going to be a necessity once the economy goes a little bit. You start messing with the world's reserve currency, the dollar. You start taking up the dollar, you're going to need to merge with other countries and form a stronger union that's modeled after the European Union, which is going to be the North American Union. That's not off the table. That's on the table, and that's a direct result of GATT, NAFTA, and all of the other programs that were cheered on by the conservatives as well as the progressive Marxist, liberal, communist people as well. So what we have here is the entire political spectrum shifted so far to the left, it's unrecognizable. But what's the end result here with all the Middle East conflict, with all the North American stuff, with the domestic, with the racial stuff that's going on? This is not by accident. This is by design. And this is to fast track the takeover of the United States and to subjugate us, every one of us, to the United Nations. Yes. Oh, my goodness. What do you listen to somebody from the John Birch Society now? Is that right? Is that who I sound like? But you see, it's all there. And if that's what I sound like, there's no apologies. It's all there. And, throw in on top of that, when a nation forgets God, there you go. And it's going to be a spanking that we are going to remember for a long time.
Yeah, those who come out of it. We're up against the top of the hour. A quick headline here.
Your phone calls this hour, 661-244-9839. It's great. This is the 27th day of March, 2015. It's a good day. It's a Friday. I'll tell you what, we've had a great week, and we appreciate, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to this show. I'm going to toss it over to Joe, and let's hit the boards. Let's hit the phone lines, and let's get some audience. Well, you're at the table. Let's talk. Let's talk. Can we talk?
We can do that. We can talk. We're going to go to area code 970 first. Thank you for holding. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. You're the first call of the evening.
970, let's rock. All right, going once. 970, going once, twice. Let's move on.
All right, area code 352. 352, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hi, it's Sue.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue.
From Florida. I called you your last 90 seconds last time.
That's right. Yes.
And when I tried to get back to you the next day or so, my computer did all kinds of strange things, like your running scripts started popping up, like 12 of them. So
Welcome
I was under
world.
attack.
Welcome to our world. Yes. Well,
yeah.
Sue,
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Well, we're going to give you more than that.
I just wanted to start out saying you guys are just wonderful. Just God bless you. I pray for you and your families. Your knowledge is just unmeasurable, and you are both very gifted people.
Well, thank you. But you know
very
what?
Gifted.
Thank you. Well, what's on your mind? I mean, that I remember, cutting you off, having to cut you off because we were at the end of the show. But what's on your mind tonight? I mean, what do you what do you think?
I'm still mulling over the DNA thing because I'm reading more and more about that. And my son and I were discussing it today. He's a good Christian, and I said, well, what do you think if the devil wanted, like Agenda 21, Denver Airport, pictures, and they got like Indian children and all that? I go, what would the devil want back in? And he brought up like the Nazis, Aryanism, and I thought, yeah, it would be anything the opposite of Jewish, right?
Well, right. Yep.
That he would want DNA. It wouldn't use logic. Like Joe said, blue-eyed blondes sure wouldn't be healthy people, as we all know we're all full of allergies.
The fair-complected among us, or among...
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not... But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just something to think about. And then I don't know if you've been following the CERN.
Yes.
It's supposed to be up and running.
Did they finally get it up and running, or is it? Are we still?
Oh,
are they
yeah.
Still in the, okay.
Well, I don't think they have it at full blast yet. They were talking about the spring equinox correlating with it.
Right, but it was my understanding, talking with Stan Dale, that I don't think that they made that date to get it running. So, however,
that's good news.
Well, yeah, but they're still going to go through with that, and when you get into this, the CERN, I mean, the CERN is, to me, oh my goodness, something very incredible in terms of what they are trying to do. Maria Canese has done a lot of research. Author Maria Canese has done a lot of research on CERN and sent us a lot of information. It's just good. When you look at it, CERN, it looks like a spider, this monstrous spider, and that fits with the Illuminati's occult movie Symmetry. The 666 logo and the statue of Shiva.
Yes. I did see a little something like that.
Yeah, and we've got to look. There's just all this symmetry taking place, and it's something extremely important. I think we have to really pay attention to what's going on in CERN, because what are we letting in? I mean, what are we letting in?
Yeah.
And what's going out?
They actually, I think their goal is to open portals, or they think they are.
Yeah.
Being Christians, we know that's like a really bad thing.
Andre Heath in The Fourth Dimension, an author, wrote something, Fringe Stargate, the Event Horizon. Scientists at CERN's a Large Hadron Collider hope to make contact with parallel universe in days. I mean, okay.
It's terrifying.
It is.
I don't want to live Stargate.
Well,
oh my gosh.
I watched the movie, at least the first. I don't know. I can only get through like 20 minutes, maybe, or of what was it, Hellboy? I think the name of the movie was, where the Nazis, they opened up a portal, and this really grotesque creature came through this portal, and that's kind of what reminds me of, is this ability, perhaps, to open a portal. Now, Stan Dale is a little more reserved on that possibility, but I don't know.
Portal, yeah. I've never seen the movie you're referring to, Ned, but
I just saw like the first 20 minutes of it or something. I was just.
Did you see the movie? It was like Terra Firma. It was about like another Earth. They went back in time to the Earth. I guess it didn't make it past the first season, but it's fascinating.
Oh, I have to look that up. No, I don't recall. I might have seen part of it in passing or something, but no,
there's all kinds of creatures in that one too.
Man, well, Russ Dizdar talks about this, and I think we're playing with something we don't know.
I agree.
Well, I think the Christians probably know more than the scientists do.
You might have something there, and I think a lot of the Christian people who are awake.
Yeah, scientists have been proven wrong throughout history. Each scientific phenomenon, we'll say, who is the smartest person of their time, throughout history, has been proven wrong. Their theory's been proven wrong, from flat Earth to the Earth rotating around, the sun rotating around the Earth to.
Somebody sent me an email about the flat Earth thing, and it's rather interesting. And people are going to say, "Well, you're an idiot, Doug, because the Earth is not flat." Well, okay, I understand that, but there are some certain things that when if you accept the fact that you're living in perhaps a hologram, maybe there is some visual deception taking place. That's not to say the Earth is flat. I'm not saying that. You have to look at the video, and you have to look at what the intent of these things are. These ideas are. But anyway, I don't mean to take up your time. But so CERN, DNA. The DNA fascinates me too. You started off by talking about that. I don't know. I mean, to me, that's going to be the DNA thing is going to be.
And I'm low income, so it was very shocking that they were willing to pay for that, because I think that's fairly expensive.
When you say pay for that, pay for the DNA.
The test. The results of the test.
Yeah, I'm not exactly certain what it. I don't know, but regardless, it's the all-around bad idea, I think, and I think it's nefarious in its origins. Man, well, you're on top of things.
Oh yeah, I get into about 5 or 6 daily, including yours, and I keep up on all the inside news. I try to, because in my family we're split. We're separated. My husband is like, I can't even say anything about like prepping or anything at all, and he just flips out and tells me don't.
Is it out of his fear, do you think, or? And I ask people this question. Okay.
I think so. He's very intelligent, and he's been in the military. So yeah, I think he knows more than he's telling me, and that he wants to accept himself. Yeah, he's just not able to cope.
Yeah.
Because you cannot see it. You go to the beach and lay on the decks, and you see the pool decks, and you see crisscrosses across the sky above you. How can you deny you're not seeing something strange?
Yeah, and even me, when Joe would point stuff like this out, I'd say, well, what do you think? I mean, it's the contrails from aircraft. I mean, that's it's one of the most difficult things for me to wrap my mind around, that there's aerial spraying taking place and deliberately so. And then you look at that and you think, well, why? And perhaps it was initially. What's the purpose of that? And weather modification?
A lot of people say it goes along with 3 different things. One is military. It boosts all kinds of radio waves by lowering. Actually, they keep the humidity down. They don't like the rain, and it benefits everyone, because then if Agenda 21 is a soft kill, if that's a reason, then it's feeding all the pharmaceuticals, which actually I have a friend that's a nurse that said they actually gave him a test in nursing school about that, saying you're going to start seeing a lot of more of these problems. And I was just dying to get a hold of this list, but he's one of them that's scoffing me off all the time, so I can't get him to give me the list. So I did some online searching, and yeah, there definitely is something to that.
Interesting.
That everybody's benefiting from whatever they're doing.
Well,
could be military, climate change.
Yep. It's a multifaceted operation. I mean, many beneficiaries to that. Yep. Very good.
And
very
some people say now they can't stop, or it actually does overheat now, the Earth, because they're... And I've also heard they're changing the language, like the weather language. We're going to have soft Sundays now.
and that's a very good... I'm glad you brought that up. The linguistics, the neuro-linguistic programming that we are being subjected to at all levels is very important for us to pay attention.
And already the children have new cloud maps of clouds that I've never seen before. I homeschooled my son, and I never saw any of those clouds on our text pages.
Yes.
But our children are definitely learning the new clouds.
Yes, and if you listen to the weather reports or watch them on television, it's interesting to hear the new descriptions of clouds, and it's really I can imagine somebody from like 1975 coming back. Well, let's say they hadn't seen TV or weren't around for since 1975. They come back and look at the weather report. The change in terminology, well beyond the obvious increase in education and knowledge, would just be you wouldn't even know what you're looking at in that short of time.
Right.
So, Well, ma'am, God bless you for your call. Anything else on your mind, or?
I did want to ask you what your opinion is on bugging in or bugging out. I hear different things, and so far I've been planning on martial law. You're locked down in your house. So if I ended up having to bug out, I'm in big trouble because I have a dozen mayonnaise jars, ball jars full of freeze-dried fruit.
Well, I think it's going to be circumstantial or situational.
There you go.
It's going to depend on where you live. It's going to depend on what happens and how it happens. You might have to bug out and leave, and you'd be put in a much better position than staying in, or staying in with the provisions you have at home might be the safest and easiest way to avoid what's happening, as I said, depending on how it happens and where.
Have you guys been feeling, not to interrupt you, but have you guys been feeling the Lord like leading you to, like, you have to do this today and you just have to do it?
Yes, in certain things, yes.
Isn't it something? I mean, my son and I are just noticing that our relationship with God seems to be getting so much stronger. And I don't think it's anything we're doing. I think he's actually drawing closer to us. We can sense people's, attitudes. We meet people, strangers, and we can tell whether they're really nice or really bad. It doesn't seem to be too much in between anymore.
That's a good.
I don't know if anybody else is feeling that, but we're having it like really strong here.
Yeah.
And
very
it's
good,
wonderful.
Good observation. Yes, you can.
It's a wonderful. If it's a gift, it's a wonderful gift that He's given us. And I figure because the Bible says, as evil grows, so will good, so will God's powers.
Absolutely.
His goodness.
Yep.
So we're holding on to that promise. Yeah, and I'm not afraid. I often, while I'm putting up these jars, I'm feeling like I'm doing it for somebody else. But it makes a beautiful kitchen. Freeze-dried food is really pretty. The fruits and the vegetables, they're red and orange and green and yellow.
They're vibrant colors. Anyone who's opened one of the cans of freeze-dried food, the strawberries or whatever it might be, pineapple, very vibrant colors.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I'd love to see your kitchen. My goodness, that's
oh yeah, I bring everybody in here now. It's so exciting. I'm like, come and look, and I think the Lord leads me to things because, like I said, I am on a limited budget, so I do a lot of garage selling or finding the discounts in the stores, and so I find these pretty red and orange stacked bowls, blue and green, and then the measuring cups match that, and it just goes on and on. The new cutting board mats are all pretty colors, so it's a fun way to brighten up your day.
Well, and that's important. We're all, whether we know it or not, unless you're independently wealthy, we're all on a fixed, or not a fixed, but a limited budget. The discretion that we must use when we buy anything, we must really prayerfully, and I mean prayerfully, approach things in a prayerful manner. So, to that extent, we're all in that same seat. Now, having said that, you asked a question about bugging in or bugging out, and Joe said it's circumstantial. I believe that to be true. However, those people who are trying to escape what's coming by bugging out, unless you've got a place to go, and ultimately no one's going to escape what's coming. But, I personally am in favor of, bugging in, unless, of course, you're at, the 83rd floor of a high-rise in the Bronx.
You like to bug in if you have to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm kind of an antisocial kind of guy. I don't know. My wife got me a coffee mug that says "Born Grumpy," and
so I would never have guessed that.
yeah, talk to my wife. Anyway,
well, my personality has changed as I was saying to my son the other day. I actually talk to people now. always end the conversation, if I'm getting that good vibe, with God bless you. I hardly ever get a response of bad, maybe quiet.
There's,
sometimes.
We should do we all should do an experiment one day, and use the, instead of have a nice day, God bless you.
Yeah,
it's
amazing
way.
Because most people go, "Oh, thank you."
Right.
I think the world's getting so scary. The UPS guy came the other day, and he acted like he was almost afraid to come up to my door. And I go, "Oh, goody, goody, goody," and he goes, "Wow, you're happy?" And I thought, boy, what are these guys living through? They every time they deliver a package, they're getting told off and cussed and.
Yeah.
And then so the next time he came, I go, goody, 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 and he goes, goody, goody, goody.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your call, and we appreciate it, and glad you're listening.
Oh, I just had to tell you guys how precious you are to my son and my life. You mean so much.
Have your son give you a big hug, and, of course, give your son a hug for us, and thank you so much for listening. We certainly appreciate it, and I'm glad you had more than 90 seconds, or, glad you had more
than
God bless you.
And God bless you. How's that?
Oh,
we're gonna start a thing. All right, kiddo, you take care.
Have a great weekend.
We'll talk again.
All right.
Great people.
Absolutely. All right. Area code 731. We're coming to you now. 731. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey guys.
Hey. Yo.
Trucker John here. I was in Minnesota last time I called you guys. Yeah.
Yes, I remember.
I'm in California now, and came out of L.A. yesterday. Hot here. But I'm up in cooler air now. I'm up around Sacramento area, waiting on a load. But I wanted to talk about that CERN.
Yeah.
Something I got to thinking about. Have you guys heard where I guess it's been on a 2-year hiatus, right?
I'm not sure.
I read where
it's been down.
Well, I read an article that it was on a 2-year hiatus, and that's what they're trying to fire up from right now. And interestingly, how Planet X and the incomings surrounding that have been stopped for 2 years. I read in a separate, unrelated article. Do you think it's possible that impending judgment from God could be directly related to them firing up this CERN? It's just something to think about, and I threw it out. It's something that came to me. Maybe the Lord gave it to me. I don't know, but that seems like an odd coincidence to me that I read in a separate article how, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that God could stop a planet.
Sure.
He held the sun in the sky so the Israelites could win the battle. There is precedent for it, but I just thought it was really odd that in both instances the 2-year mark was mentioned, and I was just wondering if you'd ever heard anybody else make that comparison.
No, I haven't, Joe. I don't know if you have, but I certainly haven't. And it's interesting. I don't know about the timing. However, if the timing is consistent, God can use things like CERN, right? I mean, He can use things to.
Yeah, He could. I really feel like they're messing with fire here, firing that thing up personally, but I really believe that it's a wrong thing for them to be doing, But hey, if God can do anything. I know that. It's just, with this, I just think the CERN thing is all wrong.
Well, I do as well. Well, any place, seriously, any facility that's got a statue of Shiva in front, the 666 logo, and I mean, come on, what?
Yeah.
What is it? There's more to CERN than just science, and it's more to me philosophy. It's more occultish than anything else.
Right.
That's man, I'm telling you. So what you're saying, hey, that's who knows? I don't know. You're the first to bring it up. Let's throw it out there. At this conference table that we're at, and hey, anyone else have a thought on that? Certainly weigh in on it. But very interesting.
Yeah, it just came to me as a I don't know. It just seemed more than coincidental that those two things were really, happening at nearly the same time. I don't know the time frames, but wouldn't it be interesting that if they fire this back up, that the Planet X and the planets start moving back in at that time?
Well,
just a thought.
Yeah, and it's certainly not coincidental. Man, well, interesting. I'm glad you're...
Wow.
And I encourage anyone who has a thought on this or has knowledge on this to give us a call and weigh in on what this caller said, because it's very important. And well, I'll tell you, I want you to be careful driving around through L.A. and it can't be easy.
Amen. Hey, I appreciate y'all's show last Friday, man. Paul McGuire, I really got fired up off that. That was awesome.
Oh, that was so great.
That was one of the most amazing. I was glowing after that show. It was really good. How the Holy Spirit really came on me personally. I just want to thank you guys for that. That was awesome.
Well, thank you for listening, and know that Paul McGuire is just a precious man, a man of God. And I'll tell you something. I think the world of him, and I was so honored personally to be able to write the foreword to his new book, which is just incredible. So. That show just really rocked the house, man. I'm telling you, it really.
Yeah, it did, in more ways than one. I believe there were a lot of people probably set free, and spiritually set free out of that show. I think there were a lot of things happened during that show. That was really awesome, and it was so weird how it happened. He just calls in, and.
Yeah.
Boom, this stuff starts happening. Oh, wait a minute. Hold up, God is showing up here.
That's right.
And I really believe that's what happened, man. It was really, really good.
God makes better programs than we could ever do. So he arranges the schedules and does that, and we just kind of submit to God's will. And it's so important to do that. I mean, really. You got to be listening. Though.
It is. Amen. All right. Well, I thank you guys for what you do, and I'll holler at you from a different part of the country next time, I guess.
Man, that's
looking forward to it.
That's incredible. Your job is just incredible. Thanks for doing what you do, brother. You take care. Safe travels.
Have a great night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, man, I remember you and I traveling, and Joe, it's you wake up in a different city every other day, and you get pretty dizzy after that. But
yep.
That man.
We're going to go to area code 707. I'm not sure if this is our caller Marilyn from North Dakota, but
Marilyn.
Let's see.
Could it be
707? You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Oh, hi. This is California.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. I just wanted to confirm what the lady was talking about in the prior call, that I have been also seeing people's hearts and the motives behind their actions, and like in layers. And the Holy Spirit revealed these things to me so I could be in a position of authority and not be taken advantage of anymore. Their motives were lies and separating me from them because they were greedy and wanted possessions, and I'm just in love and helping people, and people don't want to be around you because you put the truth out. And so at first I was like, that was disturbing, seeing that some of my family members were competing with me rather than cooperating. But it was better that I knew, because then I wasn't being hindered. And so also there's people in my family, I'm pretty much the only one that listens to this show, and everybody gets upset if I listen to it, so they don't come over anymore. And my preps are constantly taken, and I'm laughed at that that's not a good idea. But again, it goes back to the truth. If people know something's coming, we all have instincts, and it's fear, and it's denial. And so also the Lord's been leading me on a journey of positioning myself geographically. I see there's no more gray areas, either in relationships or location. It seems that the Lord is maneuvering people into positions of authority and to be protected and provided for. And those that are choosing to compete and not cooperate with their brother are kind of like not seeing what's happening because they're consumed with possessions. And so as I was being urged to move out of the city and go more to a rural area, I was thinking, well, that's hard, and how will there be a way? And one day I have visions a lot. I seen the banks falling before that 2007 collapse. And I knew that was going to happen. I called my sister. I was like, cut your mattress open, get the money out of the bank and save it. They laughed at me, and they lost a lot. But anyway, so I had a vision. I was in my living room walking across, and I looked out the window, and everything glowed red. And I heard, like, gunshots. The gunshots were actually on the sea. The Holy Spirit highlighted that it'd be in my street soon because of the red glow outside.
Wow.
And often the visions come with color. Otherwise, nothing happens. I mean, I'm been around a while, and I don't just see things or whatever. This is maybe 6 or 7 times in my life. They're significant. And so I was like, well, I probably should keep moving as the Lord is leading and calling my heart to a more beneficial place with fellowship and to get away from the evildoers, basically. I went to my neighbor's house that was always bullying me. The Lord wanted me to tell her she was a pivotal part of her family and to stop doing bad and to start doing good, because what she was doing would affect everybody that she was like the mentor of, and she was like a gang. So I thought she would change, and that would make her feel like she did good, but she continued to bully me and was like away.
Okay, and, you're breaking up a little bit there.
Okay, but that first vision, then the last vision I had was around the time that you had, I think it was Nathaniel Leal on the show, and he was
Nathan Leal.
He was talking about orange skies.
Yeah.
And so, because I was thinking about maybe moving back to LA instead of going north, and so I was had a vision of orange skies. Again, I was walking across my living room and just by myself, and all of a sudden it was like a photograph, like a Polaroid picture, but in motion, sort of, just like in my mind's eye, I guess, and that's what it looked like. But I saw orange skies erupting and black things flying around out of all the volcanic openings. I saw stuff coming out of La Brea tar pits. It was like dark matter. I think it's in regards to the CERN. And so basically they were opening the gates of hell, and all chaos was breaking loose in Los Angeles, and I felt the terror. My visions come with a feeling, of deep feeling, and my family's in Los Angeles, and so I cried, and I just knew that there would be boundaries. There's boundaries, areas that people won't get out of, like judgment is coming, and people are choosing that. They're not going to the light. They don't want the truth. They're driven and motivated by greed and other things that are negative. And so I just wanted to call in and tell that lady that I was so glad to hear her say that, because sometimes going through all of this and, you know, having everybody angry at me for knowing the truth, it makes you feel like maybe you're wrong, but sometimes you and God are a majority, and they're just...
There you are,
fine.
Yes. Very interesting how people, and I've heard this before, where people are they're able to see, I don't want to say see through the facade of people, but there's a feeling that you get when you meet someone or you...
Ted Boer talked about this the other day.
Yes, he did.
When he met Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, but even on a lesser scale, okay, when you meet your neighbor for the first time or someone on the street, you can kind of get that feeling, but you can, but you're saying you can kind of see their heart. But
this is way beyond. Yeah, this was way beyond intuition. I know you get the bad feeling, and eventually you have a falling out with that person, maybe 6 months, a year later.
Right.
But this showing me, the Lord was saying, like, I'll try not to mention exact family members, but the Lord said the one lady, family member of mine, behested, well, basically my dad, to not have a relationship with me because I've gone through so many problems. But that's just because the devil attacks God's kids all the time. And so they're like, well, she's a lot of drama. I behest you to not have a relationship with her. But she didn't actually use that word. The Lord did. And so I had to go look it up. And then I'm like, okay, this family member has been behesting my father to not know me. And my father also is a good man of integrity. And so I could actually see specific things they were doing by the word, the Rema, R-E-M-A.
Right.
And that's why it was disturbing at first. I was like, no. We're all friends. We all care about each other. And he was like, no, they have bad intentions, basically.
Wow. Well, and I think it's spiritual discernment that's at play here, and really it's something that we have to hone or hone through prayer, for that spiritual discernment. Wow.
Well, the biggest thing that he showed me was the lady caller you had last night talking about having a dream and cutting off the guy coming in with a knife to cut off her head, and she told him to get out and Jesus.
Yes.
That's what the Lord has told me. Everything is leading to that's going to be the fight. Our power is in our tongue, and it's pretty much Ephesians 6.
Ephesians 6, the armor of God. Well, that's exactly right.
No matter what comes against us, He's preparing us.
Well, ma'am, I'll tell you something. It sounds like you've got your spiritual house. You're working on that, and I just hope I really do. I hope. One thing that pains me the most, grieves me the most, is to hear that families have been split apart over being awake. Those that are awake and those who are in denial, and maybe that's a very overtly simplistic way of saying. Describing the situation, but I just feel that the rifts are going to get bigger, the chasms are going to get bigger, and we're going to have families ripped apart by what's coming, and we have to.
But there'll be family members that'll be shining light, and then hopefully we'll lead them back out of the dark.
Yes.
There's miracles like acts performed, and you cast a terrorist out of your house in the name of Jesus. They can't deny that.
True. And that's the final end game. I shouldn't say end game, but that's later on into this film, this video, if you will. Well, God bless you, my dear. Thank you so much for the call. It was great to hear you, what you had to say, and I just wish you the best. And we're going to be praying for you. All right, kiddo. Thank you so very much. God bless.
You have a great weekend,
man. Interesting. Joe, it's interesting. And I've noticed too, people on the street. There's, well, let me just say this: New York City is. How many people remember New York City in the 70s? If you do, think of I think it was 1985 when the movie Death Wish 3 came out with Charles Bronson. I mean, the city, I believe that was New York City, it was just portrayed as really, pretty bad. There's people selling junk in Times Square, and the gangs were walking and openly taking over the city. Well, it's kind of going in that direction now. The reason I mention that is I see with this taking place all over the country, lesser scales, of course, but nonetheless the same. And I see this within families too, and within neighborhoods. Not the selling of trinkets, but the split, the widening split between those who are awake, those who are asleep, those who are selling trinkets, metaphorically speaking, versus bringing good to the table. But that last caller was right. There will be people that will bridge that gap. So it's good indeed. So,
all right, area code 469. We're coming to you next.
469. You sure about that?
Live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. 469.
Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. All right. Well, my name is Rudy Davis, and I was hoping to talk about Pastor Ken Hovind tonight.
Yes. Let's. I was trying to. In fact, I sent a couple of emails to you. I'm not sure if you got it, Rudy. I wanted to have you on the show.
I probably was out of town. Yeah, I probably was out of town.
I wanted to have you on the show as a guest. Folks, we're talking to Rudy Davis, Ken Hovind, advocate for Ken Hovind, and I got to tell you, please, Rudy, we're going to give you the floor for the next from now until the end of the show. Rudy Davis, go for it, sir.
Wow. Okay. Well, hey, thank you guys so much, and I appreciate the support. My wife has, gave me the phone number, and I wanted to try to dial in, so I appreciate the opportunity. Basically, we have an egregious, flagrant case of religious persecution right here in our own country, on our own American soil, and I believe that Ken Hovind is a political prisoner. I talked to him probably at least once, twice, sometimes multiple times a day for the past 2 months, and it's just absolutely atrocious what has happened to the man. And back in December, I was communicating with a brother in the Lord, and the subject of Ken Hovind came up, and he said that I need to go visit him in prison. And I said, well, I really don't have the time. It's all the way in Florida, and I'm sure somebody's visiting him. And he just quoted the Bible verse that said that we need to visit our brethren in prison, and it doesn't really matter even what Ken Hovind has to say about it. And so my brother's name was Jerry Rose, and he convinced me by using biblical scripture that we need to go visit him. Well, since that time, guys, since like December of last year, it's just been an incredible whirlwind of just activity, and I started to look into the charges that they brought against the man 8 years ago. And there came a point early on when I just woke up one morning after reaching out to the people that were, Ernie Land is Ken Hovind's 25-year trusted friend. There was a girl up in Canada who was working in her spare time to put a website up to kind of educate people. But I just woke up one morning and I just started weeping. It's like, oh my goodness, we forgot about our brother in the Lord. Nobody even checked into the charges, and I just felt so sorrowful that that he's been in prison for all this time. And when I looked at the charges, it was for withdrawing his own money from his own bank. And then he had contractors which he considered missionaries, and he didn't feel like it was his ministry's role to withhold those people's taxes, and that they were paying their taxes anyway, so it's not like the government was missing out on anything. And the third charge was obstruction. He said a prayer on a radio, and they gave him 3 years just for that. So it's just, this is the first charge that he's never did drugs. It wasn't money laundering. He wasn't trying to embezzle anything. This was legitimate ministry money that people all over the country had sent him because they loved his ministry, and they loved the fact that he was debating these evolutionists and tearing down the lies of Satan. But I just, it's like, oh my goodness, it's like I can't believe that they put this man in prison, for these crimes, and now they're trying to put him in prison for the rest of his life. We just had a trial, guys, in a couple of weeks ago, and if I was to go into the story, it would literally take a long time. I'm asking all of your listeners to please look at freekenthovind.com, read about the original charges, listen to Ken Hovind's heart, let the discernment of the Holy Spirit speak to you, whether you think this man has spent the last 8 years in prison rightfully so, or as an innocent man. I believe he's being religiously and politically persecuted because he was so good at delivering the truth.
Yeah. Now, you are Lone Star 1776, right? I mean, that's you,
yes,
right?
Sir.
Okay,
yes,
good.
sir. That's absolutely true.
All right. In fact, sorry to do this on air, but I just want to ask you this: if at some point between now and the end of the evening, if you could send me an email with your contact information, I do want to have you on for longer than 15 minutes because you've got so much information. Now, Coach Dave Daubenmeier, a very good friend of the show, has been working on doing a lot to expose the situation of Kent Hovind. But you've been an outspoken advocate about this illegal religious persecution and imprisonment here in the United States, and we've got to unite as Christians to reclaim America. And our first fight is indeed to free Kent Hovind.
Amen.
Look, how can we best help? I mean, obviously, you have you've got a Facebook page, right? Rudy Davis, Lone Star 1776.
My wife does, Mr. Hagmann, and praise God, Mr. Hagmann. And let me also say, not only would I be willing to come on, but we can actually probably arrange for Kent Hovind to dial into your radio program. He's not allowed to have three-way conference calls, but if you're willing, and I'll send you the information, and we'll certainly try to arrange it as best we can. But I'll make sure that I get the email address either from yourself or my wife. My wife does Facebook. I don't know anything about Facebook. I'm a Facebook newbie. I kind of handle the YouTube aspect of it, and so okay. My wife's in the other room. If you're asking for what that Facebook page is, maybe she could tell everyone.
That's fine. No, that's not necessary.
Okay.
But one thing I will say is this: we will pay for any expenses to bring Kent Hovind on the air. I know that a lot of times prisons charge for the calls, but we definitely would like to talk with Kent Hovind. But now that you're on, the case itself has stunk right from the beginning with what they did, and there's so much egregious activity by the IRS. Where are we at right now? I mean, he was just convicted on 2 counts, and
well, they brought 4 counts against him. Yeah, they brought 4 counts against him, sir. They brought conspiracy to commit mail fraud, 2 counts of mail fraud, and criminal contempt of court. And he was found guilty only on the criminal contempt of court, which was a court order from 2007. His lawyers and his trusted friend Ernie Land feel certain that the criminal contempt of court they found him guilty on will not stand up and appeal. That they were very happy that they were not able to find a guilty verdict on the other 3 charges, mainly because 98% of the time at the federal court level, or 95 to 98% of the time, the prosecution wins, the government wins. And they spent over $500,000. I've heard it's anywhere from $350,000 to $500,000 to bring these new prosecution charges against him, which when I tell people what these charges are for, and I say the words come out of my mouth, but I can tell it doesn't land in people's heads because it's so crazy. He's being potentially be put in prison for the rest of his life, and I'm going to say this, and I hope it really sinks into the listener's mind, for mailing a letter. Right? It's literally that crazy. He mailed a letter. It's called a lis pendens, which simply says, if you want to purchase this property, be aware that there's pending litigation because I think this property's mine and the government thinks it's theirs, and we want the buyer to be aware of that there's going to be pending litigation. And because he supposedly mailed that letter, they want to put him in prison for the rest of his life. I could literally share some stories about this judge and the prosecutor, the previous prosecution, that would just blow you away with their biasness and their unethical behavior. And I believe that he literally is in a spiritual battle, and I believe that the dark forces want to keep this man silenced for the rest of his life. They do not want him to get out of prison. And there's many people that have a burden in our heart, and we just want to see him reunited with his family, pick up his ministry if he so chooses. It just breaks my heart that he's been in prison over 100 months now. I think it's up to 101 months. But going back, I'm sorry, you asked. Yes, sir. You asked a specific question. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask, or just in case some listeners are not familiar with the case, Kent Hovind, Dr. Dino, he taught creationism as opposed to Darwinism, and that's kind of, I mean, the motive for prosecution, which turned into persecution, was his effectiveness, as I understand it, looking into the case and talking with Coach Dave Dobmeyer and other advocates for his freedom and liberty. Well, you explain it. What was the motivation behind the IRS against Kent Hovind? Was it to shut him up?
Yeah, I totally believe so. I think I don't want to lift up any man. You know, we all come short of the glory of God. But at the same time, Kent Hovind is a gift of God to the body of Christ. God has blessed him with a mind that's just absolutely incredible. After talking to the man for several months, and they need to shut him up. He's the sort of man that doesn't compromise on any sort of truth, and even though his specialty was evolution and creation and biblical truth, you ask him the truth about any other thing, and he'll just tell you what he believes. And he was so effective at it that it really caused a lot of problems in a lot of different areas, and they had to absolutely shut this man up. And the charges they brought against him are just, the most craziest thing. They're going to put him in prison for the rest of his life for mailing a letter. That's what they're trying to bring on him now. But the original charge and what he spent the bulk of the last 8 years was something called structuring, which are these RICO laws. And it's literally withdrawing your own money from your own bank. And when I heard that, and when that finally became clear to me, because you hear all these words, and the devil hides behind these fancy words. It's like, what is structuring? It sounds really bad. What is that? Just another word for being a tax cheat? Well, when I heard what structuring was, what I did is I put on some glasses, and I walked in my bank, and I filmed myself withdrawing $9,999.99. My bank account had a little bit over that. And the lady handed me the money in cash, and I told her thank you. She told me thank you, and I walked out of the bank, and I said, what I just did is exactly what Kent Hovind has spent 8 years in prison for. He withdrew cash from his own bank, and it was legitimate cash, ministry money, over a period of 2 years. And so, it's just atrocious. And actually, sir, the IRS has come out and apologized for misapplying these structuring laws to law-abiding citizens and Baptist ministers, and there's actually an apology that just came out in the past couple of weeks, and there's supposedly people investigating that. But Kent Hovind needs more than just an apology. He needs to be let loose. He needs to be, set free from his chains. And You asked earlier, sir, what people can do to help. There's a whole team of people that are trying to make noise and shine light, like in Gideon's Army. One of the websites is freeKentHovind.com. I would recommend people go there, read about his case, look at the articles, look at the legal documents, look at Kent Hovind's debate videos. There's another website called 2 Peter, like the book of Peter, and then 3, 2peter3.com, and you can learn more about Kent. His whole thing is about winning souls to the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. That's all he's ever wanted to do. He loves winning souls. He's won over 900 people to Jesus Christ while he's in prison. But he thinks this whole court case is a big distraction. He wants to, it's like he started a prison ministry. So we praise God for his attitude, but there's some of us that we think it's enough is enough. After 8 years, we just want to see him set free and be reunited with his family.
Well, let's say he wins on appeal on his latest case, and the latest charges are dropped. Has he served his time? I mean, we know he served his time, but what would happen? Yeah. Does he have a chance to get out?
Amen. If it wasn't for these new charges of mailing a letter, and I hope that's so clear to your listeners, we're talking about a felony charge that involves mailing a letter. But if it wasn't for these new charges, he would have already been home on home confinement in February. His actual sentence runs out in August. And let me share this with you too, sir. The trial that we just went through, the 4 charges that were brought against him, one of them was guilty on the criminal contempt of court, and that can carry any number. There's unlimited time that can be associated with that. It can be up to 1 day or 99 years, depending on the mood of the judge at the time of her sentencing. And this particular judge, I could tell you some stories about her and how she's treated Kent Hovind in the past. But the other charges where they were unable to come to a verdict, they were a hung jury on those 3 charges of mail fraud. The prosecution is so motivated to shut Kent Hovind up that they're retrying those 3 charges, and he has a new trial in about 51 days on May the 18th. And so we have 51 days to rally the troops, get everybody together once again, and to show up at that Pensacola, Florida courthouse and once again show support for our brother, Pastor Kent Hovind, and they're going to retry him on the other 3 charges because they just can't stand it that he had a hung jury, and they're going to go after him again. And I'm hoping that we show up in great numbers. Although Gideon didn't need a lot of numbers, I'm hoping that we'll fill that courthouse up with good, godly men, and just put the Spirit of God in that courthouse so that when he gets tried again, that there's a lot of witnesses that see what's going on.
Rudy, I'll tell you what, we're up against the close of the program. I want to tell you did a fantastic job in the 15 minutes that we had left here. I'm going to tell you something. I please do contact me. I want you to come back on the program because we have 50 days. Really, it's going to be 45 days. We have enough time. We have to mobilize the support. We have to expose the corruption of what is going on, the persecution of Christians, and we should not tolerate this. And Kent Hovind is, in fact, being persecuted for his beliefs, and I don't care what anyone else thinks. Look at the evidence, and the evidence is clear. Rudy Davis, a great advocate for Kent Hovind, very articulate. Please, Rudy, get in touch with me via email.
Yes, sir. So much. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Praise God, and we praise God for Dave Dobbenmeyer as well.
Rudy, give him your public number.
What's that?
If you give him your...
I'm sorry, my wife is on the... Would you like my phone number so that you can contact us so we can get that information?
It's public.
Yeah,
everybody
you hold
because
Okay, we've got your phone number that you called on. Is that okay?
Good, because I did send emails already.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Have a great
fantastic. Weekend. Thank you. That'll do it for us tonight, folks. We're out of time. Until Monday. God bless. Stay safe.